Welcome to the Korea Pro Podcast, your weekly guide to understanding the most pressing and complicated developments shaping South Korea. We're your hosts, Jeongmin Kim,
John Lei,
and Joon Ha Park of Korea Pro.
Go beyond headlines as we explain not just what happened, but also what really matters and why it matters.
If you monitor South Korea for work or just trying to keep up, you're in the right place.
This is the Korea Pro Podcast. Welcome back to Korea Pro Podcast. It is our 100th episode. Yay!
Huzzah.
And to celebrate, we're giving away prizes worth up to $240 in our listener raffle. If you want to enter, leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform. Email a screenshot to podcast@koreapro.org by October 10th. If you already left a review, perfect. Just send a screenshot to that email. And let's kick off the 100th episode. Let's start with a very exciting, happy news to mark the 100th episode, a U.S. government shutdown.
First things first, I have to clarify that when Jeongmin said $240, she meant 240 American dollars,
yes, not
240
Canadian.
male deer. U.S. government shutdown.
And back to U.S. government shutdown. So how is this impacting South Korean businesses or government decisions?
Well, we don't know quite exactly yet. The shutdown just happened on Wednesday, 12:01 a.m. EST. So it's only been a little bit more than, 24 hours since the shutdown started?
Yeah.
And so we don't really know what the long-term impact is. Now, government shutdowns in the U.S., they can range from, 2 to 3 days up to a month. That was how long the U.S. government shut down in 2018 during the second government shutdown during the first Donald Trump administration.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't usually see shutdowns last too long because we have the midterm elections coming up next year, and neither the Republicans nor the Democrats want to get blamed for this.
Yeah.
There are millions of federal employees in the U.S. right now who are either currently working without pay or potentially facing furloughs, so they don't want to, end up with a slowing down economy that's, even more slowing down than usual.
Yeah, I see a lot of government employee friends on Instagram with different stories for a weekday from usual.
Yeah, exactly. So if you are an American air traffic controller and you're working without getting paid, sucks to be you.
Yeah.
But
that is not the official point of view of Korea Pro Podcast or the Korea Pro employees, including me or Joon Ha. But go on. What are Seoul's concerns about this?
Well, right now, it really depends on how long the shutdown's going to last. The most immediate concern right now is tariff negotiations.
Yeah.
Because right now, South Korea doesn't have negotiating partner, at least not officially. Right now, officially speaking, as long as the government is shut down, the United States Treasury representative and the Treasury, well, they're kind of not functioning, especially when we talk about the lower level bureaucrats who are working in these departments. And so when these kinds of slowdowns take place, they have a snowballing effect. They will accumulate over time. And we are already on a timeline. The European Union and Japan is right now, they're facing a 15% U.S. tariff.
Mm-hmm.
We are still stuck at 25.
Yeah.
And that's going to be an ongoing discussion. We are already at a disadvantage. If this shutdown lasts longer, it could have domestic repercussions in the United States that might cause even further delays. And so that's going to be South Korea's immediate concern.
How about implications above anything related to trade or tariffs?
Yeah, so the military will have quite the effect. So the U.S. forces Korea and also the Department of War, they will also have their accounts that will not be running due to the government shutdown. You'll have their core missions that are quite intact on the peninsula from U.S. forces Korea and CFC, the Combined Forces Command. But of course, planning cycles and the drills, including the Hokuk drills, could also face some delays, especially sensitive amid the sort of DPRK Russia cooperation and also the APEC summit that's coming up.
I cannot
see.
believe that you described it as a Department of War.
I mean, that is the new. It's Dow.
No, it's not.
It's Dow.
I'm still calling it Twitter, and I'm still calling it the Pentagon or the Department of Defense.
Speaking
Good
of
for you, John.
Speaking of Dow, any other further implications for South Korea?
Another impact on the South Korea's economy is really because of a lack of information. With the government shutdown right now, we're not getting the U.S. jobs numbers for September. And this is rather important. We need to know what the job numbers in the U.S. is so that South Korean exporters know what kind of export numbers that they can expect, which will also have an impact on the BOK. Now, the BOK is going to have a meeting on the 23rd of October where they're going to decide whether to cut or maintain interest rates. But if we don't know the state of the U.S. economy, it's going to be hard for the Bank of Korea to figure out how to implement their monetary policies.
Let's move on to trade issues that are less related to the government shutdown itself. Are there any updates to tariff front?
Well, when you're talking about the tariff updates, we already know that there are ongoing negotiations regarding the $350 billion South Korean investment pledge. But another thing that's going on in Washington right now is that the Trump administration has reportedly been flirting with the idea of implementing a new chip tariff. And what they want to do is that they want to impose a sort of tariff that's going to be based on the number of chips that are present within any product. And so this would really mean, now, the White House has not made any official comments as to whether or not it's actually planning this, but that's not a denial. Now, if the White House does actually go through with this chip tariff, what that's going to do is that even if South Korea agrees to every single U.S. demand about the $350 billion investment and gets that 15% guarantee, that will be meaningless. Because if we think about the number of products that all contain semiconductors and microchips, that's uncountable. If you look at an average vehicle, it contains anywhere between 14 to 1,500 microchips. If you're talking about high-end vehicles, they can contain up to 3,000. And so if we are going to if the U.S. is going to impose tariffs based on a number of chips on any given product, that is just going to decimate South Korea's exports.
What are the corporations or South Korean government responses to this so far?
Well, right now, because the White House has not confirmed that this is an actual policy direction that they're headed toward, South Korea cannot actually make a preemptive announcement about this because we don't know if this is actually going to happen or not. But as far as the businesses are concerned, they're going to have to make a lot of calculations as to how to redesign their products. Right now, if you're looking at an average, say, a Hyundai Sonata, it's going to have a lot of different microchips already. But how are they going to be able to package one of these cars and remove a significant number of those chips and export it to the U.S. directly and then install the chips later in the U.S.? We don't know what exactly kinds of business decisions that have to be made, but a lot of smart people get paid a lot more money than we do are thinking about that right now.
Are there any other ways to go around this with like new supply chains or whatnot?
Well, we're not quite sure because right now the Trump administration is using the Section 232 tariffs. Now, this is very important. This is not reciprocal tariffs.
Yeah.
It's Section 232, which allows the U.S. presidents to impose tariffs based on national security concerns. Now, Donald Trump has been using this quite liberally because he knows that the Supreme Court is going to hear this reciprocal court case pretty soon, and the court might side against the White House. And so the White House is preemptively using Section 232 to such an extent that it's imposed tariffs on furniture and kitchen cabinets based on national security concerns.
But using that Section 232 preemptively, is that even actually legally okay?
We're not actually sure if we are in a world where we care about the laws anymore.
I mean, that's true. And domestically, a corporate-related update this week was very important, an abolition of a breach of trust crime. This has been in headlines for those of you who monitor, for instance, entertainment news with Hype versus New Jane's Min Hee-jin sort of controversy recently. The breach of trust law, peimje, this has always been a staple in corporate headlines in South Korea. So what's the announcement from the party and when will it be actually implemented?
Well, I don't know anything about... is it New Jeans?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
Any New Jeans fans who's listening to this, please cancel John.
I'm uncancelable.
So what was the announcement?
Anyway, the announcement was that the Democratic Party and the government both agreed to abolish this law, the peimje law, which translates to breach of trust law.
So it's both parties.
The ruling party and the government.
And the government, I see.
And so this announcement is pretty big in South Korea's context. And that's because what this law does, and it dates back to the 1950s when the Constitution was first written.
Yeah.
If any business incurs financial losses, and these kinds of losses impacts shareholders, for example, and these kinds of losses were based on, say, negligence or self-serving purposes, then the executives in charge can be prosecuted. This was an actual crime. It wasn't a civil lawsuit.
No, until very recently, there were cases.
Until just this week.
Yeah.
And so this has a huge impact. Now, again, I don't know much about Min Hee-jin or New Jeans, so I can't comment about
But
that.
Samsung
is the big one. In
Yeah.
2015, we, for those of us who've been monitoring South Korea's economy, there was a big merger within the Samsung affiliate companies. It was Samsung C&T and Jail Industries. Now, we don't have enough time to go into all of the details, but basically what that allowed to do was it allowed Lee Jae-myung, who was then the executive chairman, to finally take over the company, Samsung Group, from his father. And because of that, there was a lot of noise, a lot of lawsuits from shareholders from around the world. And because of this, it took years of prosecution. Now, Lee Jae-myung was finally found not guilty just this year. But what happened was that this law basically says because of these kinds of financial losses that could impact shareholders, impacting executives, this had a chilling effect on businesses.
Right.
They were not able to make bold merger plans. They could not make bold business plans because they were afraid of making losses. And so the ruling party and the government has framed this as a pragmatic / pro-investment / pro-business measurement. But that being said, this does have a downside. And the downside is that because it is now downgraded from a criminal law into civil litigation,
Yeah.
what that means is it gives a lot more power to the corporate families, to the table in South Korea. Now, if anyone wants to have a complaint against, say, the Samsung executive, and they want to sue them, sure, they can they can file a civil lawsuit now. But if you are an average Joe and you are going up against Samsung that has billions of dollars in its war chest, you're not going to have a good time in court. And so for minority shareholders, this does not come as really good news.
Interesting. And now let's move on to defense and military. What's new with the self-reliant defense plan issue?
Right. So it came during Lee Jae-myung's first Armed Forces Day speech.
Right.
That was yesterday, October 1st, where he was doing a military review of South Korea's state-of-the-art weapon systems, and then went on to talk about South Korea needs to push for a self-reliant defense, the 자주국방.
I see. Hold on a minute. So this is the same event that former president, now impeached President Yoon, utilized so that he can do the street march. He called it street march, but it was military parade in Seoul Square, right? But he didn't do that this time.
No, it was a very toned down sort of military review and also an Armed Forces Day compared to what we've seen 2 years and a year prior.
And with a civilian defense minister.
With a civilian defense minister and a new Joint Chiefs of Staff chairman, and also just a revamped military leadership as a whole. It was about 1/3 of the personnel count that we saw from last year that involved more than 1,000 troops. The troops that were out yesterday only totaled to about, I believe it was about 500, 400 troops.
And there were like a lot of civilian invitations to speak or like stand on the podium. And also the language that Lee used was not that provocative, I believe. But before we move back to the defense plan issue, were there any new assets shown?
Right. So there were new assets that were shown. The new assets mainly were the drones that came out. So South Korea's, I think it was reconnaissance drones. There were stealth drones as well that came out that have been developed and are ready to be fully operational within 2-3 years' time.
Yeah.
And are integrated with AI.
What about the suicide drones that South Korean government used to work on?
There's also the suicide drones that came out on display. Yeah. They were on display for the first time. I believe that they were debuted for the first time yesterday. I think there were 2 different types of suicide drones. I can't remember which actual modes of the suicide drones that they were, but I believe that they were developed by Pungsan. Yeah.
I just mentioned this because the South Korean biggest arms expo, APEC, is coming up, and I believe that there are a lot of different countries, a lot of different international companies coming to South Korea to see if there are any potential joint ventures possible or any purchases possible.
Sure.
So let's keep an eye on that. Let's go back to the defense plan. What was his talking point?
Right. So his talking point was mainly reiterating what he said on September 21st through his social media post, suggesting the need for self-reliant defense.
The Facebook post.
Right.
Yeah.
So the self-reliant defense, 자주국방, and also pursuing a much more smarter elite force. Mainly that's detailed by AI-integrated robots, precision strike missiles, and the likes. And then he also framed that within the plan or the long-term goal of, he used the term recover, so 회복 for OPCON, which is not normal sort of diction that's used within South Korean administrations towards opcon.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's usually chonhwan, which is transfer or transition.
Reclaim.
Yeah. So it was something that the presidential office the presidential office spokesperson said yesterday, about hours later after his speech, that he deliberately corrected the chonhwan term to 회복.
It's a bit too much, I think. It's because it gives anti-colonial wording sort of vibe, because we used to say 주권 회복, 국권 회복 after, Japanese colonial forces, they lost. They were like, oh, we are getting back the lost sovereignty. So it sort of gives reclaim sort of vibe, but it's even stronger, I think.
Right. So it is sort of recovering what was lost, as kind of,
or like stolen away.
Sure, but mainly his three pillars were of self-reliant defense was based on, as I mentioned, the AI drone robotics, the defense industry as a growth engine for the South Korean military and developing these advanced weapon systems, and also improved troop welfare.
I see.
But it's sort of the thing that we need to catch here from Lee's rhetoric is that although he wants to move forward with a self-reliant defense, it does give South Korea opportunities to actually play a card with Washington, saying that they're taking more of an autonomous approach within their defense, but also there's a lot of operational shortcomings.
Yeah.
So South Korea currently does not have the ISR, the intelligence and surveillance capabilities or reconnaissance capabilities that they need for monitoring North Korean threats.
Right.
They rely on US and Japanese data to actually merge together so that they can see it on their data screens.
So we have the guns, but we don't have the eyes.
No. And also at the same time, sure, we have the Project 425, where you have the fifth satellite that's supposed to go up by the start of next year.
Yeah.
But it's still something that's years away from being operationalized within the Joint Chiefs of Staff and also the regular branches within South Korea's military, and also interoperability with U.S. forces.
Interesting. So the capability and the rhetoric at the same time, I think those are the two things that we do have to keep a very close eye on.
And Joon Ha actually wrote a very brilliant analysis about this that just went up today. So if you'd like to know more, subscribe.
Looking to stay informed about South Korea's fast evolving political, business and cultural landscape? Join us on Korea Pro, the go-to resource for in-depth analysis expertly curated by top-tier professionals. And now you can pick the membership level that best suits your needs, thanks to our new subscription packages. Starting at just $199 annually, you can access daily analysis and our weekly podcast. Or try our premium membership package, which offers additional perks such as executive briefings, monthly reports and forecasts, networking receptions and event opportunities, as well as much, much more. To find the best fit for you, just head to signup.koreapro.org and become a member today.
Week ahead, we don't really script these podcasts, but we do make notes on like what to say. And then John included a meme and saying 추석 송편 전 갈비찜 용돈 from elders. But aren't you elder relatively to some of your family members, John?
Now, I did not write that.
Oh, did Joon Ha write it?
Yes.
I added the picture of the meme. He wrote the rest.
I see. Okay. So it's Chuseok next week, which means that if you are working in Korea or you work with Korean counterparts, you can't because it's a very long holiday spanning almost 8 days, I believe. And if people are using extra PTOs, they could be having maybe like 2 weeks off as well. So keep an eye on that. Government operations will slow down in South Korea as well.
It's already slowed down.
So for our executive briefing writer, John, it's going to be a heck of a week. And speaking of which, after Chuseok week, are there anything important that we should keep an eye on?
Right. So we'll have the parliamentary audits that will begin from October 14th all the way to the end of the month, and we will see government ministries, including the Defense Ministry, Foreign Ministry, and also the Science Ministry, to come in and explain the lithium battery.
Speaking of which, the recovery process after the fire that broke out in Daejeon is continuing, and we have to keep an eye on this because it actually impacts daily lives of corporate and government policy experts based in South Korea. And next, U.S. cleared South Korea of currency manipulation this week. We have to see if BOK or any financial authorities in South Korea will respond to this. Can you just really quickly walk us through what happened?
Basically, what it came down to is that the United States and South Korea said that Washington agreed that South Korea is not a currency manipulator, which was a complete change in tone from what happened since November last year. During the final days of the Biden administration, the U.S. listed South Korea as a currency manipulator, and the Trump administration kept South Korea on that list in June.
I thought it was a slightly tier down than manipulator status, wasn't it? Monitoring list.
Yeah, on the monitoring list. But what really matters is that just as this announcement was made, it was made at the 11th hour, because had this agreement not been made, then it would have compelled the United States, Congress, to actually impose punitive measures on South Korea.
Right.
And so because Washington said South Korea is not manipulating its currency, South Korea can escape that. Now, we have to consider that right now there's a lot of negotiations going back and forth about the $350 billion investment that the U.S. wants. And because South Korea is saying that they cannot make that investment upfront in cash unless there are guarantees, and one of those guarantees is the request for an unlimited currency swap between the BOK and the Federal Reserve. Now, for a lot of different reasons, the Federal Reserve does not want to do that. And so this agreement that the South Korea is not manipulating the won is potentially, it sounds like it's a compromise that Washington is willing to make. But it's not going to be the currency swap that South Korea wants.
But because there is a U.S. government shutdown and South Korea is having a Chuseok week, we will keep an eye on this, but probably not much movement next week, but maybe we will keep an eye on it in the following week. And all of this information will be in your inbox Monday, 2 p.m. And if you want to know more, please subscribe. And don't forget to mark our 100th episode. Please leave a review and rating to get your prize worth up to $240.
Thanks for sticking with us for 100 episodes, and here's to 100 more. Bye.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in.
If you want to know more, sign up for our daily executive briefings. We'll brief you on all you need to know from the past 24 hours and why it matters, delivered to your inbox every morning.
If you want to stay ahead of the curve, sign up for Korea Pro to get a full package of insights, from daily expert analysis to profiles, month in review, week ahead, and more.
And until next time, I'm Jeongmin Kim.
I'm Joon Ha.
And I'm John Lee, and we'll see you next time on the Korea Pro Podcast.